All right, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Mando Method Podcast. I am your co-host and bourbon drinker, Armand Rosamilia.
And I'm the other co-host, Chuck Buda, and I drink pretty much everything.
Pretty much, yeah.
Beer lately, but bourbon also.
I'm becoming a beer snob. I don't drink much beer. We were at the store the other day. My wife's like, "Oh, do you want to get a beer?" So I was like, "You know what? No, I have literally 57 bottles of bourbon in the house. We counted now.
Wow.
And I drink like one glass every 2 weeks, maybe, or like I'll do a rum and coke. But so I'm like a collector. I'm not an alcoholic, not yet.
Not yet.
Well, an alcoholic is somebody who doesn't have any alcohol in their house because they drank it all. I'm the idiot who spends literally thousands and thousands of dollars on alcohol, and I don't drink it. Like behind me, I have a bottle of Pappy Van Winkle, which is like over $2,000 I spent, and I still have like half the bottle left. So, anyway, speaking of drinking, though, Chuck, ReapersBrew.com, Reaper's Brew Coffee. I'm drinking Reaper's Brew right now.
How apropos, you're using the mug, too.
And I'm using the mug. One of about 10 mugs I have, not including all the serial killer mugs I have behind me. I don't think they have them at the website anymore. I think Chris is doing hopefully a second series of mugs. So they're a horror-themed coffee, veteran-owned. The coffee's delicious. 2 flavors, Murder Bud, which is their regular, and Electric Chair, which is the high caffeine. And if you use Mando at checkout, Mando, you get 10% off of new orders, and you receive a free gift. So ReapersBrew.com, check them out, and tell them Big Uncle Chuck sent you. So we're doing another, every month we try to do a roundtable. We try to get a couple of guests in to chit-chat and kind of get their feel on publishing, their feel on writing, basically their feel on the world, whatever they want to talk about. Me and Chuck are just kind of here for the ride, which is always fun. So we're going to start with letting our guests introduce themselves. We'll start with you, Ann.
Hello, I'm Ann Charles, and I like tequila. So I'm always trying every different kind of tequila I can, get my hands on. And I like it because it just doesn't knock me down as much as anything else. The older I get, the less I can drink. So I have to go with the pure stuff. I figure pretty soon it'll be like moonshine, just straight up alcohol, straight out of the moonshine bottle. I don't know. Otherwise, I'm also author of 5 different series that are ongoing. I write a mixture of mystery with supernatural. Some of the series have more action adventure in them. Others have a little bit of more archaeology, dig site, fun stuff. And I have one really crazy series that's called the Ann Charles Silly Circus series that has shifters in a circus that travels around by train. So it's all across the board, whatever feels good, when I sit down in front of the keyboard. And I also have one series that's Western, historical, supernatural, with a lot of humor, and I co-write that with my husband, Sam Lucky.
Very cool.
Welcome.
Thanks.
Next up,
Joanne Mclean is my name. And I use JP for my writer's name because Joanne is spelled so many different ways. And I'm probably the least prolific of the authors here today because I only have 8 books.
That's a lot.
I think, Armand, that you probably have some bourbon in that mug that you're not telling people about. That would be my guess. My drink is wine, but it's only 3:00 here, so I would have to get into the Alcoholics Club in order to drink at 3, although I have stretched it on occasion. I live on a little wee island on the west coast of Canada, tiny little thing. And my books are supernatural, thriller, paranormal stuff about people who can fly and a little bit of into mythology in the latest one. And just recently, the newest book that came out in October just recently got finalist category for an award that you've already won, Anne, the Chanticleer. And it's a finalist for another award called the Wishing Shelf Book Award. So I'm pretty excited about that.
So it's the finalist in the Chanticleer Paranormal.
Yes.
Oh, fingers
Yeah.
crossed for you. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I noticed it
Congratulations.
on your page.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, that was a exciting year. Yeah,
Did you go? Did you go
I
to the awards?
I didn't go that year. I had young kids when this was, and I mean, I still have kids in high school, but that really has changed my way. You know, when they were really little, I would go a bit. My husband stayed home, but then I quickly learned this isn't working, you know, for me. So that came on a year when I was, and I think we had moved down to Arizona by then. We were up in Seattle area where it was closer, you know. So I didn't, but then she had me for a keynote speaker. I think it was the next year or 2 years after. So I was able to go up and do the keynote and enjoy the conference and have fun. Have you been to that conference
No.
before?
No.
It's a nice conference. It's got a lot of really good information for writers. It's Kiffer Brown and her husband, Andy. They put it on every year. And I've known Kiffer for years and years and years. And she's really built up this amazing, her and her husband have this amazing, it's not just the conference, they do reviews, you know, book reviews. They do so many things. And it's really cool to see it just keep growing and growing and getting more and more respect as she keeps getting, you know, working with more people in more different industries. So it's really neat. There's a lot of great people that go up there. So good luck. My fingers are crossed for you.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Now, for both of you, is our awards are those type of things? Is it an important? Is it a validation, or is it take it or leave it? Because you know you get so many different answers across the board. I have an ego, and I enjoy winning awards. I enjoy putting them up on the wall. I enjoy telling people. I enjoy taking pictures of them. And there's a lot of writers that are like, whether it's true or not, they're like, no, I don't really even think about it. But I mean, do you think about it? Do you get excited when you're nominated for something like that?
Joanne, you're.
I do. This is probably the first book that I've really explored that avenue before. I hadn't done that with my first series. The first 7 books I wrote were all in the same series, so I really only promote the first one, and that would be the one I would submit for any awards. And I did submit, and I won an honorable mention for that one. But this particular book, I thought, well, I'm going to try, and I'm so surprised at how well it's doing. I guess I shouldn't say I'm surprised, but honest to goodness, I am surprised. It's like when it was shortlisted, it was kind of like I turned to my husband and I said, hey, my book was shortlisted, and then it hit the finalist, and well, pop the cork, man. I was pretty darn happy. I guess that's my ego speaking too, but I also think that for marketing purposes, it's really nice to be able to say, you know, it wasn't just my husband and one of my sisters who enjoyed the book, but it's actually a couple more people liked it as well.
Yes.
Can't hurt.
No, I've really been fortunate to win some really great awards, and for marketing purposes, yes, especially when I was first getting going, it made such a difference. It seemed with like if I was doing something maybe with some press, you know, with maybe a newspaper related or a news channel. I've done some interviews, you know, in different things like that. And it makes a difference if you have some of those stacked up, I think, to say, it just gives you some validation. You know, it's unfortunate that you have to have validation in order to get in, but it does give you a little bit of a leg up, I think, if you've won some awards and going forth. And the first book I published was Nearly Departed in Deadwood, and that one won the Daphne du Maurier, which was a big mystery one for it's all over. It's not just like a chapter. It was, I don't want to say worldwide, but I guess it is. And like you, Joanne, I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. And then that same book won the what was it? It's the Golden Harp from RWA, Romance Writers of America, because there's a mix of, genres in there. And I didn't think it was going to win the RWA one for sure. It was the same book. You only win once. That's the luck of the draw. But it won that one too. And I was just flabbergasted. But because of those 2 awards on the first book, it really sprung that book out of the gate when we released it. And it was a small press because my agent and I at that time had formed a small press, and we released it. We didn't go with a publisher. Not that I hadn't tried, but marketing and the publisher didn't. We tried, one of the big ones didn't think it would fly. So we were rejected at the tail end. But we had all this, these awards build up. So when we launched, that really helped back then. That was in 2011, but it really made a difference, I think, getting going to have some awards behind the story, especially when we wrote the press releases and people, they would accept them at different papers then because of that. So it can be beneficial, I think. And it's nice, I think, for the ego too. Makes you feel like it's not crap, like you tell yourself. It feels some days. It's not just crap on the paper. It's good. People like it. So I think it's wonderful. And I really hope you win it, Joanne. That's going to be really cool for you to add to your resume, of course.
Yes, it's going to take a lot more champagne if I actually win.
Yes.
Is it my turn now? Can I ask?
It's your turn, Chuck.
Okay, good. Well, clearly we're in the right room together because we have folks that like to write series. So I like to say that, I grew up, and I don't want to age myself, although you can probably see the grays.
52. He's 52.
It's not
wow.
bad.
Okay. Thank you there. That was quite specific. But I grew up watching, serials and stuff on TV. So and reading serials, in terms of like the Hardy Boys and stuff like that. So the way my brain works is just envisioning stories broken out over time, following characters as they progress. So do you also think in terms of series, or did you just happen to stumble upon writing a book, finding that the readers really enjoyed the characters and then decided to take it to a series? Or I guess talk about your thoughts on writing series versus standalone books.
Joanne, you can go first.
Thanks. My series came about completely by accident because when I started writing, I did not always think I was going to be a writer. It was something that came to me later in life. And so when I started writing the first book, I was just seeing if I actually had it in me to do a book. And I loved the writing process. Absolutely fell in love with it. Couldn't stop writing. So anyway, wrote the first book thinking it was going to be a standalone one-off. And then I couldn't stop thinking about the characters after it came out because there was so much more they had to say. And I could tell that I could take the characters a lot further than I had in the first book. So I put a second book out thinking, okay, so I have a trilogy, and I branded it as a trilogy, and I put it out there as a trilogy, and I was so excited about a trilogy. And then the fourth book came out, and that kind of blew the trilogy out of the water. So then I stopped thinking in those terms and just kept writing. Call it a series at that point. And then I got to a point where I was getting a little tired of, after 4 books, I thought, I'm not sure. So I didn't know whether I was going to write a 5th and a 6th. I didn't know if I wanted to finish the series necessarily, but so then I took some time off and I wrote a companion book. So I wrote the first book from a different character's perspective. So the first book is written from the female, and then the book called Lover Betrayed is the man's perspective. So the incorrect perspective is in that book. And then of course.
It stands to reason. No.
And then I finished it off, and a lot of people said to me, well, why are you finishing it? You should keep it open. So I do have it left open. I've left open a few little windows that I could pick it up again if I wanted to and expand it a little further. But for now, that's finished. So when I was thinking of the storyline for the new series, the first book that came out in October, immediately I knew I wanted a series, and I'm thinking series when I'm developing it now. So I know I have a 3-book arc. I don't have it going any further than that right now, but you never know come to the end of the 3rd. So I'm not calling it a trilogy. I'm calling it a series. And so I guess because that's how I started, it's how I think now in terms of books. I do have some short stories that are one-off stories, and I have a novella that is a one-off novella. But for the most part, I think series and I write series, and that seems to be the way I go.
That was similar. I wrote Nearly Departed, and that's the one that I was just talking about, and I finished it, and my agent at the time said, "Great, where's book 2?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" She goes, "You left that hanging." And I said, "Well, only just a little." And she's like, "No, you left it hanging, and there's so much more. There has to be." So with that particular series, I often said, early on, I'm going to write 12 books and then it'll be done, and that was just way out there at the time. And last year I published book 12, and whoa, we've got so much more to go. So now I just say, I don't know. It ends when it ends, and when the readers are tired of it, if they get tired or I'm tired, and then it'll end. But there is a series arc that I am following along, and it's still, just getting toward maybe the midpoint of the series arc. So there's a lot to come yet in that, and it keeps growing. I really didn't expect to happen what happened in each, by the time I hit book 5, something happened that I went, whoa, I didn't see that coming. I guess that's the first turning point in the series. Woo, so it just keeps, it's like a monster. It just keeps growing and getting bigger. But I think because I'm using supernatural too, I think it opens it so that it's not a CSI show, the same, we got another body, we got another thing. It's not like that. It's got some character arcs growing, and that's kind of fun. I have a series, Jackrabbit Junction mystery series, that I thought was going to be one book again. And then, no, that's not. That's going to be a trilogy. Someone, my agent at the time, thought that was a better idea. And I said, okay. But then I got to book 3 and we were no longer partners. And some of the readers said, what are you talking about? You're going to end the series. There's a ton more. And so that's now book 6 that I'm working on in that series. So yeah, and the one I'm writing with my husband, he's writing the 4th right now. And then we brainstorm, and then I'll go in and do my part. So it just keeps, I do think in series now. It just keeps growing, and it's so much fun because to me, it allows so much more future and growth, and you can take your time. You don't have to dump it all really quick and tell everything all at once and have stuff happen fast. You can just put little hints in, and develop that over time. And most of the readers, they're like, oh, this is so much fun. So to me, it's that way. What about you guys? You too. Do you?
I love writing. So does Chuck. I mean, we both series. I have standalones that I've written that I know. I look at it from the selling point. If they had sold better, a couple of those books, it would be at least a trilogy right now.
Right.
But because the numbers weren't there, it's one of those. Well, I'll put it on the back burner, and I know I'll never go back to it. At this point, I have so many other things that I'm writing, so many other series, that I look at it and I go, it's a business. It's it's part of the career, and if it's not working, years past I would force something even if it wasn't working, and I would write that trilogy, and now I have 3 books that didn't sell, and
Right.
I've written an extra 100-something thousand words when I could have written something that was selling. So for me, that was a big part of it. But it's still fun when we do book signings, and me and Chuck do book signings together. It's fun to have those standalones on the table. I work with Severed Press, and I've written 6 monster books with them, and they don't want the next book in that series. They just want one and done standalones.
Right.
So it for me, it's like create a monster and write these characters in, and then maybe use these characters somewhere else in another book down the line, but not not really worried. And for me, it's the challenge of I have to stay focused with them, because even though I love these characters and I would love for them to be in 6 or 12 books, this is the book they're going to be in. This is the story they're going to be in.
Right.
But you, Chuck.
Yeah, that well, I mean, you kind of touched on it. That's where I shoot myself in the foot, because I only have one standalone novel. The rest are all series. And so when we do book signings, it's a hard sell in person to get somebody to buy because they walk up to the table and they see all these choices. A lot of the book signings we do with some other author friends of ours, and we do them at breweries and other places. So we have a bunch of books on the table, but they walk up to the table, and if they have their choice about buying one book from each author, to look at my books and say, ooh, well, I got to buy book one, and now I know I have to invest in book two and book three or whatever down the road. It's harder for those book signings. It doesn't mean it can't be done, though, because I've had people return at conventions and stuff the following year and buy book two, and then the next year buy book three, et cetera. But it kind of hurts if you don't have some standalones when you do those live events. But yeah, I mean, on the Kindle or e-readers and stuff, it's not a big deal, and it seems people actually prefer it because you get those page reads, and
Right.
you see the tail in the sales going from book 1 to 2 to 3, etc. So, but
Right.
it is what it is. I'm a series believer, thinker, and so.
Yeah. I have the same problem when I'm doing hand selling, and I spend a lot of my time convincing people that there are no cliffhangers. You can pick up any book in the series and read it, because a lot of people will walk away. They don't want to pick up book one and maybe want to go on to book two and then have to invest, whatever it is in the series. And hopefully they'll pick up the new book because there isn't a second book in the series. And that's actually how I convince people. The book one was never going to be a series, so you won't be missing anything if you buy it and don't want to go forward with it. But even in advertising, when you're marketing your books, when it's in a series, you're marketing the first book all the time. So it's like this book that I just put out is like my second book because all of the other 7 books were in a series. So I was always marketing just book one.
Right. And that's an interesting thing too, because I have a new series that I'm doing a rapid release, January 15th, February 15th, March 15th for the first 3 books, and then 3 months for the final 3 books. So the whole thing will be released within a year. But I'm only promoting book 1. I'm only pushing book 1. So like with the series, how do you deal with that? Do you just put out the next book, and is it you ignore? Do you do any kind of push that, hey, book 5, book 6 is out, or do you just continuously push book 1?
For me, every time a new book comes out, like when I did book 12 last year, we push book 12 and we make it clear it's 12. It's the 12th book in the series. We mention the other books, but we really push that it's 12, and we do a lot of fanfare for it. And it's been like that for every book. And I haven't really run into people that'll go, now that's too many books. I'm not going to really take my time and do that. It's more, there's 12, or there's 10, however many, there's that many books. And I'll say, yes. So if you like it, this is going to keep you busy for a while, and it'll keep you in the world. And then my series, most all of them cross over. So characters cross over, and I'll say, and if you really enjoy, the voice and the humor that I have, check out, and you want some adventure in the desert with a little bit more flavor of this, you can try out the Jackrabbit series. Or if you like archaeology and kind of Indiana Jones, then head on down to Mexico with the Dig Site series. So, because I always think it's because of Netflix and Amazon and how series have really been burned into. I mean, I'll watch a movie now on one of those, and if it's done in 2 and some hours, and I'm like, it was just a movie. What am I supposed to do now?
Yeah.
I need about 8 more of those things to get me through this series. So, I'm not saying that's not, maybe people just don't approach, but it's not really something. And I worried early on, how do you promote book 10 for people that are new? And I've done like at a book signing, and the fans are there to get the new one. And some new person comes up and says, what is this? And they'll say, oh my gosh. And the fans will sell it for me. You got to get book 1, at least book 1, if not book 1, 2, and 3, and get started on this. And then they'll also buy the newest. And so it's really been and maybe I'm just getting people that like series that come over and take a look then because they see that. But I do have different options always. I always say, well, you got 5 different options. You know, what's your choice? We've got 5 different big series. And on that note, like I said, with my husband working on the 4th in the Deadwood Undertaker series, I'm of, you know, as we started this out, the first book was, even though I had these 2 other bigger series going, book 1 was a little slower, you know, and then we had to get book 2 out. And it used to be 3 books, and then you really start getting some momentum on sales. But really, for me, the last few years, it's 5 books. You need 5 books in a series, and then you start really getting the people coming in because they want 5 books set for them, so that when they jump in, they can really go, you know. And so it's not really been a problem for me yet to have, you know, just only series available. I think I do have 1 short stories, but it's going to be a series someday. I just can't get to number 6, so. But that's been my experience with it to date. So every new book, but I do call the first one, Nearly Departed. She's my old girl, man. She sells like nobody's business. And she's 11 years old now, and we put her free and she goes boom, you know, way up in Kindle free. If we sell 99 cents, she goes boom. We space it out, you know, so it's not constantly shoved. But that book, lovingly sometimes call her the old prostitute for me because she just keeps on going, man, and bringing them in, you know, and that's the joke. I mean, it's not really that bad of a book, but it's just that whole feel of she's the madam now of it all. And she runs and she, you know, people come in, they love it. So not to I feel bad about my book now because I said that. How silly is that? It's a good book. She's not bad.
She can't hear it.
She can't hear it. Yeah. She's a good, strong seller, though. And I think that's the thing. You do still have to push that first book and keep that first cover looking nice, you know, and keep the excitement in that, too. But going forward, pushing each book, you know, making it exciting. So they go, oh, everybody's excited about book 11. I got to try this series. Everybody's so excited about this, you know. There's something maybe in that gets people to come in. It gets me. I'm a sucker. What? There's 11 of those shows? I'm in. You know, people love them.
What about you, Joanne?
Yeah, I find I love series. I'm the Netflix person too. Sit there and if it's in a series, it's like can't wait. And then I get upset when the series comes to an end. I just watched the Warrior Nun only to realize it ended. It didn't end, but they haven't done the next series yet. Mm-hmm. Same with Yellowstone. I was watching. Loved Yellowstone. Beth Dutton makes me howl. She's so funny. So yeah, I do. I envy your position, Anne, having 5 series because that is like you have such a huge amount that you can offer people. When I'm at my book signings, it's like you've got 2 choices. You can do the series or the standalone.
Right, but that's something that you're building, and I started out with Janet Evanovich, who I loved. I loved her when she was writing for Harlequin and had these single titles back then. I was reading her, and she came out so strong with One for the Money in her series, the Stephanie Plum series, and I watched it, and she got kind of for many years she could only write that series. It was within this, I felt like she was walled in, and she'd try something and the critics would just pan her because it was like, well, it's not Stephanie Plum. And so I was coming into it at that time and realizing, boy, I better get a few out there because I don't want to ever be stuck in one series and that's all you get to write, because that would drive me crazy. So I put out the first 2 Deadwoods, and then I put out a Jackrabbit, and a couple years later I put out a Dig Site, and then we put out the Undertaker, and I put out the Circus, and so my fans each time, they're awesome, but they do kind of go, what's this? Especially the Shifter series, the Circus, they're like, come again now? What's this? How's this working? But so many have embraced it, once, especially when I go, and here's another, and here's another. So then they go, all right, let's give it a shot. But it's been time, I don't know how long you guys have been writing. And I'm not a fast writer, but it has been since 2011 that the first book came out. And I am 50, so I'm right behind you.
You're a kid.
It doesn't feel like it most days. But I do, I don't know. I think there's a lot of standalones that are great too, but I just think a lot of people have gotten used to series for now, and I'm sure that'll shift and people eventually go, is that going to be a series? Forget it. I don't want to do any more series. I'm all burned out. That's first time I watched the show 24 way back when. I was so into that, but by the time the 24 hours were up of the series, I was like, I need to sleep for about a week. That was so exhausting because there was so much to that series, so.
I have my sister-in-law she reads a lot, but she always says to me, I won't read any of your stuff until it's done. I don't want to read, you have 5 books out, but it's going to be a 10-book series. So when you get all 10 done, then I'll read the whole series, and she'll binge read it straight through. So my Dirty Deeds, my crime thriller series is going to be 12 books, and the 10th book came out not too long ago. So she's like, all right, let me know when 11 and 12 comes out, and then I'll actually buy and read all of the books. And that drives you crazy as a writer, because I'm doing other series,
right?
And those books won't be done, hopefully in this coming year. So I'm like, oh, good, I have 12 sales waiting for me, a year from now,
right?
When hopefully people are buying them now. But for me, it was definitely once I hit that book 5 or book 6, all of a sudden it was like people saw that series for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And the first one did phenomenal because it was a Kindle Scout winner. So it was a Kindle Press book, and I sold a ton of copies of that first one. I mean, it did phenomenal, but I didn't let them do a second book because they wanted to wait a year. And I said, no, this is, it ends on a cliffhanger. You need this book in like 6 months or people are going to kill me in the reviews, which is what some of them did, because it ends on a cliffhanger. But once I took over, it was like not as great. 2, 3, and 4 were like half the numbers. But once I hit like book 5, all of a sudden it just flooded back. Like everybody went, oh, there's 5 books now. I'll read 2, 3, and 4, and 5. And then I'm always bringing in new people. But I'm really promoting the first books in the series. I'm just pushing those first books. And obviously when a new book is coming out, like, books coming out the 15th. So I'm promoting that book is coming up, especially if a pre-order, and especially if it's like a 99-cent pre-order or something. I'm pushing that, but I'm really most of my promotion is still pushing that first book.
Something Amazon taught me way back when, it was in like 2012. I had the first 2 books out, and one of the Jackrabbits, and then the third, Deadwood, was coming out, and they wanted to put book 2 of the series down to 99 cents and push it. And this is back when those actually, as marketing things, worked really well. Right. So they dropped book 2, and I said, don't you want book 1? And they're like, no, leave that where it's at. And I think it was at $2 or $3.99 at the time. But we want to drop book 2 down to 99 cents in preparation for you getting book 3 out. And holy cow, I sold book 1 like crazy by promoting book 2.
Yeah.
So that was a real lesson for me of how for me it was, I don't have to always push book 1. I can push one of the other books. And if you're like me and you got to start at the beginning of something, and it's like a crazy obsessive thing that I cannot start at book 4. Are you kidding me? What have I missed? Yeah. If you're like me, you're going to go back and get 1, 2, and 3 if book 4 is on sale, and so forth. So that was a real eye-opener on, you don't have to always promote the first book for me. And it worked like nobody's business. So I often, when I'm trying to get book bubs, I'm always trying to get my second or third book before I get the first book as a book bub, because I'll always get a big push on that first book when I sell those other ones, or drop the price on those other ones.
Yeah, I have the second book of Dirty Deeds. I'm doing it for free for 5 days coming up.
Oh, that's good.
And I'll give book 2 away, and then book 1 will sell like crazy.
Right.
So I'm more than making back what I lost on that second one, and then I can watch the wave of 3, 4, 5, and then it just moves along over the next few weeks. But yeah, I don't control one at all, Kindle Press. So they'll do 99-cent sales on it like
Right.
2 or 3 times a year as part of a giant, all of their thrillers in, all of those, which is great, except I'm thrown in with 99-cent. My book is 99 cents, and so is Dean Koontz' book. So you're thrown in with all these big names at the same time, which is great for the exposure, but you know what, exposure kills you.
Right.
And but I'm always working that book 2 or book 3. I'm always trying to get that as my book bub. I'm always trying to get those. That's my free book. I'm going to do book 5 at 99 cents and
Right.
see if I can see how far I can go down the line that people go, okay, well, book 10 is free. I'm going to go back and I'm going to buy the first 9 and see if it actually works. And sometimes it does. That book 4 is like my sweet spot of that I can actually get those first 3 books selling.
It really is book 4 of the Deadwood series that put me on. I hit the USA Today bestseller list, and it was book 4. So it wasn't 2, it wasn't 3, it was 4. Boom! Because I think, like you, it's that backlist is coming through, and oh, look at all these other books in this series. Oh, I got to get this. So I do. It gets tougher, I think, with 7, 8, 9, but you can still get some excitement going and people collect it and put it on their Kindle. To me, a lot of BookBub people that download are just putting it on their Kindle, and someday they'll get to it. So it's a good thing. It's just, I still feel like it's so important to somehow get them to choose your book over, if you're like me, the 100 other unreads in my Kindle. What makes me, getting people to choose that book is the hard part. I can get them to download it, if you do a 99-cent sale or free, sure. But how do I get you to pick mine over everybody else to read? That's
Right.
what I'm always working on in marketing. It seems like, how can I get them to try it, pick it up? And word of mouth is, of course, the biggest thing. Anything I can do is trying to get people to tell other people, you got to try this book. So it's always a quest to how can I reach more people that way, and get them to try the story instead of just having it on their Kindle.
Yeah.
But and the other thing is, way back when with BookBub, and I don't know why I'm going on this tangent, but I'm going to finish this thought because I am 50 and I will forget this. But way back when, early days of BookBub, 2011, 2012, when it was getting going and I was getting going and I landed a BookBub when I'd get them and they would just boom, you shut up for days and days and days. It was amazing. But that doesn't happen anymore. And of course, BookBub has raised their prices considerably from what they were, trying to get, their part in the deal. So I've really had to switch my thinking. Like if I have a BookBub actually coming this weekend, it'll drop to 99 cents. And it's the first book in Deadwood Undertaker series, landed a BookBub for 99 cents. So instead of thinking, okay, 500 plus all the other add-on markets we do is probably push this ad to costing us $700. Instead of going, okay, let's make, $3,000 off this, it's let's make back $700,
Right.
And try to, come out even. And then those are all possible new readers that we can hopefully snare, and we'll bring it up because I had to stop thinking the other way because it was so depressing when your BookBubs wouldn't hit like they used to. Now, this is after they broke the categories up even further, and where I used to get mystery, I was suddenly in the supernatural, and there were some of us that we it's like we were building a new category for them because there was nothing before, and now they were trying to get people to try the supernatural.
Yeah.
So that
BookBub is
tough.
Is to I just actually had one last month. I have my Dying Days, my zombie series is 9 books, and I do a $9.99 box set of all 9 books, and I put it together for the page reads, figuring it's 428,000 words.
Nice.
That's a lot of page reads, and we'll do it that way. And I was surprised I was getting a lot of sales at $9.99 for the series, and still selling the other 9 books individually. So I threw in for a BookBub. The horror one's like $369, and I got it. And then with all the other ads, it ended up being about $750 I spent
Right.
on, Robin Reads and all the free books, all the other ones. And within like 6 hours, I had already hit like $1,500 in sales on it.
Sweet.
And I ended up, it's still my number one book that I'm selling on Amazon, but I'm already over like $6,500 just on that book.
Great.
And all the rest of my books are going up to, and for me, it felt like this is 5 years ago.
Right.
This is what used to happen. And like you said, like my thing was, if I can make my $750 back and people read this and I have 200 other releases on Amazon for you to choose from, hopefully you're gonna read this or throw it on your Kindle and go, what else does this person have? I've never heard of them, and buy something else that's not 428,000 words. But this was like the first one for a long time that it was actually worth the money. I mean, I made back that money like within hours. I was like so excited.
What did you drop it to from $9.99?
I dropped it to 99 cents.
So it was that's what, we're dropping to 9. It's
I figured,
just one book.
It's I'm at this point I'm giving it away. They're not going anywhere because it's all 9 of the books.
Right.
But I'm hoping they read something else that I have out, because I have a ton of horror books. And so far, all of my horror books have been selling very well because of that. So I'm getting that backlist is also selling on that. So I'm super happy with it, which obviously means I'll never get another book bub, because that's always what happens. It takes you like years to get one.
It does. It used to be a lot easier. I do it now, where I used to be able to get 4 to 5 a year. Now I get 2, 3 if I'm lucky. So, but it's just a constant. I've gotten to where maybe I'm jaded after so many years when it comes to marketing, but I've really gotten to the point of, listen, if I'm breaking even on any kind of marketing venture, that's really good to just break even and make my money back, because that's not including, if they like your books, they might go buy more stuff or something like that. But, and it's not that I'm negative about it. It's not that. It's just, I try to be realistic so that I don't, are we going to make it to the top, whatever, and then get my hopes, kind of, well, I guess not. So.
Well, sadly, you have to put your book down to 99 cents usually when you're doing these sales. And it's so hard to earn your money back when you're only making 35 cents on the book.
That's right. Yeah, your backlist.
Well, especially when I'm doing a 9-book series like that, because they're taking like an extra 8 cents or 9 cents out of the 33 cents I'm making on that sale.
Yeah.
So I'm because the file is so big, so I'm making like a quarter every time. But when you look at it and I go, I made $6,000 on this book at 25 cents a pop. I sold a ton of books.
That's a lot of readers.
That's a lot of readers, and that's
awesome.
So you look at it that way. But did I think that was going to happen? No way. Not in a million years did I think I was going to make that kind of money. And I'm still making the money. Today is still $100 day just on that book, and it ended 20 days ago.
That's exciting. Yeah. That's good to hear as someone who's got a book bub coming up. instead of I tanked and I only sold 4 and I spent $750. Yeah, that's a lot better to hear. Oh gosh.
I had a new release from BookBub when I had the book coming out in October, and it did not pay for itself, which was disappointing. Like you say, you've got to kind of gear your expectations to what's going to happen. So I put it down to 99 cents, and I did not make my money back.
Well, at least you got an opportunity. Whenever I get rejected by BookBub all the time, and the one time I got it, it was like on Christmas Day for only India market or something. It was something like real obscure like that. It was like only international, but these 3 countries or something on Christmas Day, and I made nothing. So, but going back to like what y'all were talking about before is like, kind of what works for me. And we talk about this on our show a lot, that mileage may vary, depending on the person, because there's no one size fits all. But what I tend to do is I analyze my numbers on Amazon for 5 years, and I just didn't get the page reads. I think in 5 years I had like $450 in page reads or something abysmal.
Right.
And so what I did is I actually any new books that I come out with, I put into Amazon exclusive to KDP. I moved, and Armand can attest to this, I moved my older stuff to wide through Drafted Digital probably 3 or 4 times with no real results. And finally, I started to get results on like the 4th or 5th time. And what's funny is, you were talking about it before, Joanne, it seems like Amazon, you got like the bottom feeder type of reader. Everybody's looking for that 99-cent or free book.
Right, yeah.
But I sell box sets of trilogies at full price, $9.99, all over the place on, iBooks and Kobo and Barnes and Noble and stuff. So I actually do better, again, for myself, selling the old stuff as box sets wide, as opposed to keeping it in Kindle Unlimited. I'm hoping that I could reverse it and take after my good buddy Armand and start killing it with the page reads. And I'm not sure why I never was able to get people to read the books through Kindle Unlimited as opposed to buying it. So, but yeah, I get a little bit better ROI on the wide side than I do on Amazon. So for what it's worth, I don't know why I threw that in there.
No, it made me, I did take my Jackrabbit series. I wasn't writing for that for a year or so. So I put that on Kindle Unlimited. And I've been wide for the longest time. So it was a thing, let's try that over there. And I didn't have big hopes on tons of page reads types of sales. I was just kind of going to see what it was like, throwing it in there and put the whole series in and let's see what happens. And then after so long, I'll pull it back out, which I'm doing this month. I'm pulling it back and going back wide with that series. But the sales, it's been there. I haven't pushed it hard or promoted. I didn't do any Amazon ads. I just put it out there. But what did happen was my reviews. I got a ton more reviews, it seemed like, over the last year. It just, my Deadwood series has always had a lot more reviews than all the others. But now that series has almost caught up to some of those, the books. So while the sales may not have been like, wow, you did an amazing, you're a star over on Kindle Unlimited, getting those extra reviews, which were good reviews. They weren't, a lot of times you run a free or cheap and you get some not so good reviews that it seems like you get nailed by those. They were wonderful reviews that came in that really boosted that up for me. And it was a bonus I didn't expect to have over there. So while it wasn't about making a ton of money, it did help with reviews, which we all know help in the long run with your sales. If, anybody going in to look. So that was kind of a different thing that came out of trying Kindle Unlimited for me. And I don't know if I'll put another series in KU again for a while or not, because I like wide. I don't know why. I don't like all my eggs in one basket. It makes me nervous. And I think that's just my take on it. And I have decent sales on the other ones too. Not like some people. Some people say I make more on Apple than I ever made on Amazon. And I'm like, how are you doing that?
Yeah.
What the heck is going on? Where are you marketing to? Because I need to find that little vein of gold you've found. But
where do you do well on those other channels? Where do you market?
Were you asking me or one of the guys?
Sorry, I was asking Chuck.
Okay.
Oh, well, I'm a terrible marketer. So I'm actually famous for at live book signings selling the books of my friends and neighbors. And I always say, why are you reading my book? So Armand and his wife,
and
Shelley,
that's not a joke. He sold a lot more of my books than he's ever sold of his own.
Well, because I was a fan of that's how I started. I was a stalker and a fan of Armand's stuff. And I was like, oh, you got to read this series because this is good. Oh, you got to read this. And so I sell the other guy's books, and Armand and his wife, yell at me and pull me aside at every book signing. And they're like, shut up, let them read the back of your book, and stuff. Well, because, I'm afraid, because I had like an extreme book that had extreme sex and gore in it. And I had an older woman come up and pick it up and read the back of the book. And I felt embarrassed. So I was like, oh, you probably don't want to read this. And she's like, I have yet to read something that has made me blush or something like that, was her response. And so, yeah, I was prejudging the reader, I guess, kind of the way they prejudge our books. But
Right.
yeah, I'm a terrible marketer.
That lady's in a sanitarium right now, by the way, after reading
she
Chuck's book.
did buy the entire trilogy.
She did read the whole book, though.
So that was awesome, and in paperback. But yeah, I've dabbled with the BookBub ads, and I've had some real good success with the BookBub ads as opposed to Amazon ads. But then that kind of dried up, so I stopped that. I never really had success with Facebook ads, and I've done the whole social media thing. But something that we kind of joke about on this podcast is, that there doesn't always seem to be a rhyme or reason. Sometimes I'll do nothing and I'll sell like 50 books in a month, and then other times I'll have all kinds of promos and things going, and I sell nothing. So I think that the key is consistency. It's kind of trying everything and sticking to it. And even though I'm saying that, I don't live up to my own. I don't follow my own advice. So let's just say that. Which people who listen to our show also know, because Armand yells at me pretty much every week. So
pretty much, yeah.
But yes, I would like to figure out how to do that stuff, because I too, especially because on the iBooks and Barnes and Noble, people aren't looking for discounts. They're looking for good reads. And
Right.
So if there were a way that I could push those people that way, I would. I just haven't figured it out yet.
I think it's always changing too. I don't know. One of the best things, it seems for me, especially with as a reader too, looking to buy books, is it's a lot about the author. It's about, maybe I'll hear something, an author talks, maybe it's a podcast, maybe it's something, and I like what they said, and then I'll go give their books a try, because you won me with you. Now I'm willing to try your books, because there's so many books out there. How do I choose? But if I like the author ahead of time, then I go into their books with more of an open mind. I want to try them. I liked this person. I don't know. And I think that's one of the things they call that is relationship marketing, where the author, you build a little bit of a, something with a person, whether it's just you're talking and they're listening, but they like you, or they're willing to give your stuff a try. But that means, doing like what you're doing, the podcasts and more, and getting out there and showing your true, personality. And for authors, that's not always easy for us.
Right.
I mean, I always want to just be on the couch with food, watching TV, right? I don't want to go talk and, that's just, I'd much rather do that and write my book when I can, not be out there. But I think we're used to visibility a lot of times now with all our social networking.
Yeah, you kind of have to.
But I did want to tell you, Chuck, my mom took my book to church, and I'm like, whoa, what are you doing? You've read that. You know what's inside those, that cover. What are you doing? And she's like, oh, all those people of church have had sex too. It's not a big deal.
Right.
And I'm like, well, it is to me. I feel like I'm in church standing up at the pulpit holding that thing when you take. But yeah, so it's really hard, I think, for us authors, because, there's a lot of, I came from the romance world. That's where I started. I'm not there. I still have some in my books, and those romance writers are amazing, because they take a beating in the press, but they still go forth and they still sell their books, and they're wonderful stories that are happy, endings. And I just, coming off that, I've always said, like, there is language and sex in here, okay? So, and you can't do that. You have to be like, yeah, it's a really good book, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Let's go.
Exactly. All right, Chuck, you got a last question, or
a last? Yeah. I guess talk about, obviously marketing and promotions are a struggle for us, as we've talked about here today. But I guess what else do you find difficult in the writing life? Is it the first draft, the second draft, working with editors, publishers, or something? Like, where I guess, what's your pain point? And I've got about 100 of them, which is I'd probably have more if I worked with publishers, but I don't because I don't have that patience, so I self-pub everything. But I guess, like, what do you guys find most difficult about being an author and having your stuff out there?
Joanne, you want to go first?
I suppose when I first put it out, I felt very much like you did, Anne, when your mom took the book to church. Like,
Yeah.
oh my God, people are reading this. But my biggest challenge right now is my first book, I completely pantsed it, didn't have an outline at all. As the series got longer, I started getting better at outlines. It made it easier to write and keep track of all the loose ends. And with the first book in the series, I had an outline. I messed it up entirely. I had to go back and redo the timeline on it because it was so messed up. I'm having the same problem in this book. So right now, that's my pinch point. Is I've somehow messed up the outline, and I'm struggling to get through the book, and it's driving me crazy. That's the pinch point du jour.
I like that.
I don't want to. Are you done, Joanne? I don't want to come in on.
I'm done.
Okay. I'm working on book 33, and I'm on chapter 8 now. And I usually have about 25 chapters just in my books. So just to give you a feel there. But I always feel like I am the crappiest writer ever that cannot write anymore. It's gone. The magic's gone. I suck. This is horrible. I'm never going to be able to write. Who wrote those other books? I read them and I go, what the heck? Who was I on drugs when I wrote that stuff? Because how did that come out of me? Because this thing here, it's put barely forming the word the half the time, it feels like. And it's such a struggle. And I at the start of every book, I go through this. And you would think after this many books, it wouldn't happen anymore. I'd have this, I've got this, I can do this. But it's still there to the point. My husband just goes, I know, you've got it, just keep going. And even my mother, she's like, I'm 76 now. How many more times are we going to have this talk? I'm going to be dead soon. And then I can't tell you that you do this every time. You think you're the worst. You think you're horrible. This book will never sell. How do I think? What makes me think I can write a book? So that is something I don't know how to beat. If I did, it'd be gone by now. So I think it's the demon that's going to be with me every time I write a book. And
I think it's part of the process, though.
Yeah.
At this point, I mean, me and Chuck talk about imposter syndrome all the time, and I have over 200 releases on Amazon, and every single one of them starts the same way that you do, Anne. With this, I can't get through this story. I'm god awful. I don't know who wrote all this other stuff. I don't know why people are buying this crap.
Right.
And it's like part of the process. And it's almost like I worry that I'm going to sit down at some point and go, I'm a great writer. I can do this. And that's going to be the worst book or the last book I ever write.
Yeah.
Because for 30 years of writing and publishing stories for me, every single time I sit down, and I write 3 days a week. I write live on Twitch. So I start a short story from I have a title. That's it. And while people are in the chat room watching me and watching the webcam, I'm literally starting a short story from scratch. And every time, 5 minutes to one, every time I sit down and I'm shaking, and I'm like, what if I freeze? I'm an awful author. What if I can't write? But I think again, it's part of the process. The day I sit down and go, I got this. That's when I'm gonna actually freeze and not going to write anything. So I think, unfortunately, for the rest of your life, you're going to have this, and you almost hope you do have it because it's part of you finishing a great book.
Maybe it's like the butterflies before you I mean, every interview, every podcast, and I've done lots. I've got the butterflies, and it's like, come on,
Yeah.
And it never. And I think my husband was talking about some actor that said, Oh yeah, it was on stage in Ashland, Oregon, where the Shakespeare, the Shakespeare Festival. Anyway, that actor had said, I've done hundreds of plays, but every time, right before, I have butterflies before going on stage. So maybe it's what makes, the story better, because there's so much emotion there.
Yeah. I just read the Matthew McConaughey book, and he talks about it. He talks about freaking out until he literally, they say, they start the scene. And up until that point, he has no idea who his character is. He doesn't know his lines. He's sweating. He has no idea what's going on. And then it's action, and then he's like, I got this. And it's part of his process.
Right.
And I'm a lot better looking than Matthew McConaughey. So I mean, I think I got this.
I was gonna say, if I had his abs, I wouldn't worry at all.
I wouldn't worry. Yeah, exactly. And that voice, his voice, it's nice too. So
when I read that book, I read it like you read it in his voice, and in that laid back Texas drawl of a book, and it's like you enjoy it even more.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's that or drink tequila and write. And I tried drinking once and writing, and it's horrible. So, just got to stay sober.
You're supposed to write drunk and edit sober.
I know. And I tried that, but it was bad. It was like, whoa, was it Hemingway that could?
Hemingway's, yeah.
Yeah, you're no Hemingway. Just stay sober.
Yeah, pretty much.
Go there.
Well, thank you both for coming on. It's been awesome. You know what else is awesome, Chuck?
Reaper's Brew?
Reaper's Brew Coffee. That's right. Check them out, reapersbrew.com. They have mugs. They have K-Cups. They have, you can get a subscription, and it is delicious. I finished my cups. I'm going to need to get another cup. And if you use Mando at checkout, Mando, you get 10% off of new orders, plus you receive a free gift. Thank you both very much for being on. This was a lot of fun. Good luck with everything. And you're going to have that imposter syndrome for the rest of your life, which is, part of the process, unfortunately. But thank you both for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. It's been great.